Good morning. Welcome to my live. This is just basically a sit and crochet, me in the mornings, like I would be sitting in a crochet circle or a craft circle, just kind of doing my thing and drinking my coffee, showing you what I'm doing, teaching you some new tips and tricks. Thank you for everybody that's joined. Can everybody hear me? Can you guys hear me? I hope so. I do have my mic on, so hopefully this is what we've been working on this week. Granny square bags. The beginning of the week, I did a couple of lives that are how to make your motifs pop. I have to turn this light out. I hate to turn this light out because it's a little bit dark out today, but how to make your motifs pop on your granny square so that you don't see where all the stitches are joined. Good morning, everybody that's joining. This is just my basic live crochet circle where I sit and stitch and chatter away, show you guys my tips and tricks. I'm just letting everybody know what I did earlier in the week. Earlier in the week, I showed you how to make your motifs pop on your granny squares. No, they're not stitched on. They are actually crocheted together. I did this one. Which needs some work because he's a little bit odd shaped there. I just freehanded him while I was doing the live one day to show how you would make your motif and then add your granny square around it to either make it square or to make it tilted. And I'm making all of my granny squares this week tilted. Thank you for the like. Thank you very much. I'm making all my granny squares tilted because I'm working on tote bags. This is the tote bag that I'm currently working on during this live. I'm going to wait till a few more other people join me. Yesterday I showed how I go around the corners and how I did my handles. I finished one side of one strap, almost finished it. And then today I'm going to go around and show you how to finish the other side of the other strap. Thank you very much. But again, one of the tutorials that I had done earlier in the week was, again, how to make your granny squares pop. All the lives that I do in the mornings, not always with it in the mornings. Like I said, it's just, this is me. I'm not trying to act or be anything I'm not, but all the lives that I do with all the tutorials, when I'm done with my live and TikTok's processed the video, I upload it to YouTube. So you can find it, if you go to my bio, my link tree, you can find my YouTube channel and you can find all my previous tutorials that I did. So the beginning of the week was making your granny squares pop, how to maneuver your stitches so that you can't really see them. I mean, it's just, they're all crocheted together. They're not sewn. I don't really like to sew things together, so I don't sew my appliques on my granny square. If I can't put it together with a crochet hook, chances are I'm really not going to do it. Thank you very much. So I had this one that I demonstrated. I had this one that I demonstrated, which I'm still working on. I think I'm going to put some little, cut out some little pink felt teardrops and join them. But I did actually have one of them where I put a little safety eye on them. I did that one, and then I did the frog. Today I'm going to work on doing the second handle of the bag. This is basically how thick the handles are. This is one that I have finished. This is one that I had done that still needs to be lined, but you can see on the finished ones, I do like a decorative stitch on the top of it to keep it, the handle from curling. And then when I'm done with them, I line the whole thing, including the handles, so that it doesn't stretch out. Somebody had asked me at one point, do I block my granny squares? Do I block my granny squares before I stitch them together? The answer is no. Again, if I have to block something, sometimes it's my crazy dog. But I took care of him. I filled his bone with peanut butter. He just realized that and went over to grab it. Now he'll go away for a while. I don't block my granny squares. I put them all together. I stitched the bag together, which was another one of the videos you can find on YouTube from one of the previous lives. After I've stitched them together, I usually just hang them before I line them, because I'll do like 4 or 5 of these, and then once they've hung for a few days, they nicely fall into place. Then I don't have to worry about blocking them and doing that extra step, because that to me is just another extra step and I don't want to do it. I want to do the fun part. I'm going to hold the hook in my hand and crochet. Alright, Charlie. So, welcome to everybody who's joining. You're pretty much sitting in my living room with me and my crazy dog while he's eating his bone, and I'm going to chatter away while I show you the things that I'm doing. The week before that, I did basic amigurumi. And this is a basic doll pattern that's available on my website. You can find the link in my link tree. And from that basic doll pattern, just a quick overview of what I've done over the past couple weeks. From that basic doll pattern, I showed you how to make a giraffe, the bunny, the cow, and like you can see, they're all the basic same, it's the same doll. This one's in worsted weight, this one's in blanket yarn. It's all the same doll. I do have that pattern on my website. It's free, it's not a blog site, there's no ads, there's no clickbait, it's just basically my website. I do also have where you can click to find the accessory pieces, like the ears for the bunny, the ears, horns, and nose and spots for the giraffe. And then also I managed to get up there a basic puppet pattern, and the basic puppet pattern was for a pointy nose puppet. And it's just a basic sock puppet that you can pretty much take that basic sock puppet and turn him into anything you want. This one I turned into a shark. I do not have the shark pieces up there yet. Shark pieces, I think, are on my Ravelry site. Is a shark puppet. I do have a pattern for the rounder nose puppets to make like unicorns and things like that, but I have to find my notebook, because like all my patterns, it's all my stuff here, all my patterns are just kind of mostly free-handed and written in notebooks and look like this. So I have that notebook out in my garage, but I've been too lazy to go scavenge for it because it's cold here and it's done nothing but rain or snow every single day. So I have not gone out to my garage to do that. And I am waiting for one person to join, Gwen. And when Gwen joins, I'm going to, she had asked me to show her how to start working chevrons. So when she does join, I'm going to jump from doing this bag, and only because you do kind of have to work around the handles of this bag like you're working around a chevron, decreasing your stitches here in the corners, because if you don't, you'll get like a bubble. You won't get like a nice crease and a nice straight edge. you'll get a bubble where there's too many stitches because you just kept working around that point. Okay, so let's jump in. Yesterday, I showed you how we started at, this was my starting point over here. These bobby pins as my stitch markers because I go through tons of them. So this was my starting point. So from my starting point, we went up one side, we chained around the handle, we came down the other side, down to the corner, back up this side, we chained up this side, back down to this side, and back to where we started, and working just single crochets. After I did that, I single crocheted up and around my handle, and back down, and up and around the other handle, and back down. I did that so that I had 2 rows of single crochet on my handle. I also wanted to note that when I do that, I only work through, black's kind of hard to see, I'll hold it close. I only work through, when you have your chain for your handles, and this is just my preference and how I do it. You can do handles a couple of different ways. You can do your chain stitches and then just keep slip stitching in them. And when you, thank you very much, Rainbow. When you slip stitch in them, it just keeps slip stitching in them. It makes like almost like a rope, like an I-cord. When I do mine for these granny bags, because I want like a little bit of a thicker handle on them, as you can see, and then I like to decorate that. So when I'm doing it, I take my stitches, this would be my chain that I would start in. So when I go around the first side of my chain, so I've gone all the way around, I've done all my chains, and I'm going around for the first time to single crochet into them. I'm just going to single crochet into this top loop. Now when I go around the second time, I'm going to single crochet into the crochets that are built on top of that. When I've done that twice, and I have my handle that's 2 single crochets, 1, 2 rows of single crochets for the handle, you have to finish the inside of it. So you're actually going to, so you've worked around this, and you've worked around this part, and you've worked up around this part, but what you haven't done is you haven't added the border to the center part and up around the inside of the handle. So when you do that part, you can see with your chain you have a top loop and a bottom loop, and if you flip your chain over, you have like that running stitch, that like third, or you can see a little bit better that way, you have like that third loop on the very back. You're not going to go through that third loop at all. You're just going to go through this. You're just going to go through this top loop when you do the first round, and then when you do the second round, you're going to go through the bottom loop. And when you do that, it's kind of going to leave, this is why I did one of them. So this is the right side. Let's see if I can, nope, that does not help. So no matter what I do with my lining, it doesn't help. So I've done my chain, and I've done my 2 rows of single crochet, and then I went to finish the other part of it, and I did my other 2 rows. Now when you look at it, it kind of curls like right in the middle because you only worked on those loops, but when you pull it apart, I don't know if you can, there we go. You can see right in the center, it creates like a little ladder effect where you skipped those back where you skip the back part of the chain. So this back part of the chain will create that ladder effect. So you're just going to work when you do the handles through the top loop, through this bottom loop, and then you're going to leave those bars on the back empty so that we can, they help to go over back and forth to do the like bric-a-brac decorative stitch on the top. So let me grab my yarn here, and for those that are just joining me, it's early, thank you very much, I appreciate it. If I put this on, it's probably too much. Nah, that's too much. No matter what I try to do with my light, it just doesn't look right. It's hard to tell, and I know I'm doing black, so I am just going to join that with the chain. If you look at this, my handles here, this one obviously is thicker. This is the one that I finished. That's the side of the bag that I finished. And now I'm going to go up the other handle. So I'm going to do this handle right here, and I'm going to work my 2 more rows of single crochet around, down the sides, around and down the sides. I'm going to start and end in the middle, so I'll show you that. Good morning. You'll be listening while you get your kids ready. Oh, not a problem. You can, like I said, they're all uploaded to YouTube, so you can always go back and watch if you want. Subscribe to the channel. That would be helpful. Maybe. Subscribers count. So I'm going to take, and I'm going to join this right in the center here. And right in the center, this would be the front of the bag now, because we did up and around the sides. So I'm going to join my stitch right in the center here. And I'm going to start my stitches right where the last join, and end my stitches right where the last join is. So there's going to be 1 stitch in the middle, and then that's where I'm going to start. So I'll join my stitches here, and you pretty much, it does not matter where you put it. It really doesn't. Wherever you can manage to poke your hook in for that first stitch, for the middle there, just do it. It's as long as it's in the middle. It's not going to matter. Aesthetically, it's not going to look any different. It's not going to change the look of the bag. Nobody's going to know that you did that. It just works that way. So I'm going to put my first stitch, and I join with a single crochet. So you join it. I know it's black yarn. This is really awful. My black yarn into the center, and then I'm going to take again where it joined to the next, to these 2 squares. That last joining one is going to count as my first stitch, and because it's a chevron, it is a chevron because it's angled, it goes up and down. You have to decrease the stitches on either side of that center stitch. If you don't decrease the stitches on either side of that center stitch, you're going to end up with a bubble there. Like you're not going to get a crisp edge. It's going to bubble out because it seems like there's too many stitches. So I'm going to go into this, and I'm going to, the first one, the second one, and I'm going to decrease the next stitch to it. And then just like I did with the sides and up around the whole handle, I'm going to go all the way up this square. This was a really bad one. I was hoping to have my bunnies done since it's a lighter color and you can see them a little bit better. But I didn't. Good morning, everybody. Just me sitting here crocheting, chattering away, letting you know what I'm doing. Right now I'm working my way up this side. first half of the handle is done working all the way around. The second half of the handles are done working. There's like loops. This light is really, really awful. So this is my, and I'm going to mark that stitch because like it's the end of the granny square. So I'm going to mark that stitch just so I know, because I want to make sure I have it as close to the 75 stitches as I started with. Let me see if I can grab a different light so that you can see this a little bit better. You can still hear me talk while I do this. But they have become, I've been doing it for a long time, and the granny squares, I don't think I used to make things with granny squares when I was little. I'm just grabbing another light. I used to make things with granny squares when I was little, and then I would just stitch them together like a quilt to make like stuffed animals or things like that. And that was like in the 70s. And then this year, granny squares seem to be so popular. And when I saw the granny square tote bags, I myself am a bag lady. I love tote bags, purses, anything that's a little bit unique. I just have to either buy it or try it or make it or do something. Let's see if this light works a little bit better. Ooh. Okay, that might work. Let's see if I can turn that down a little bit, because that's like really bright in my face. That might work. Okay. Can you see this a little bit better? No, I'm not going to see it because the light's in my eyes. Okay, so where am I at here? So we're working around the inside of the handle to make the second part of the handle. This one's already done. I'm going to start getting tangled here. This one's already done. I've worked all the way around to do my first 2 rows of single crochet, and then what I'm doing now for the other handle is working in this loop here from the front of the bag to do the other half of the other 2 rows of single crochet for my handle. So that's what I'm doing now, and I did join it here somewhere. I know I did. Did I lose it? Oh no, I worked all the way up to the end of it. Okay, so I'm up to the end of the granny square. And then, like I said before, when you look at, I know I will have bobby pins all over my entire project to mark stitches. I just learned that that's the easiest way for me, because if I don't, I lose my brain whether I'm talking or not. Okay, so let's see if I can. I'm just trying so you can see these black stitches. And it's just, so now I can't see. No, I can't see anything. Okay, so this was the top of the row of the 2 single crochet rows that we did. And if you look at the bottom, I don't know how to tilt that so you can see it. There is there you go. There is the bottom loops, and you're only going to pick up 1 loop. You're not going to pick up 2 loops to work down the other side of the chain. You're just going to pick up the bottom loop to work up and down that side of the chain for the first row of this part of the handle. So just don't know what to do with the light today. It's really gloomy outside. Usually I count on my window over here for my light, because it's much better. But you can see I'm going to then go up the side of the stitch, and again I'm only going to pick up one loop. So as you can see, I'm only picking up one loop. Sometimes when people go up and down the chains, they go right into the stitch from the bottom and they pick up both loops, but you don't want to do that with this. You just want to make sure instead of picking up both loops, you only pick up that top loop. So again, instead of picking up, you can see where both loops, this is awful, I'm really sorry guys. So you can see where both loops would be. So instead of picking up this loop and that loop underneath, I'm just picking up the very top loops. And then you can see, it looks like it creates a hole. I should have worn my red shirt again. It looks like it creates a hole, but that hole is going to be okay, because when you pick up the next loop, it's going to cinch it a little bit tighter, and those holes that we're creating, I'll do a few and then you can see them a little bit better. Those holes that we're creating by just working the very top loops instead of both loops, the second side of the chain, those holes that are being created are what we're going to work our, damn it. Can you see them? No. They look like little X's. They look like little X's. That's what we're going to work our decorative stitch over. So I'm going to just keep going up this side of this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Keep working up the side of this handle. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There are 75. I can't see either. I'm not going to be really picky if I miss a stitch or two, because you're not really going to notice. So let's see if I can. And again, I'm just working up the. I wish I could show you. Like, it looks so perfect from that angle where you can see the X's and the stitches there. From working just with one loop. You know, what I look at is they look like perfect little X's. I don't know if you can tell. Right there. Like perfect little X's. And that is done on purpose so that I can do my decorative stitch on top. So I'm going to finish going around this one again. And then, oh, here comes my huffy dog. He must have finished his peanut butter. And then we'll go down, we'll decrease around the chevron, and then I will show you how I do the decorative stitch on the top of the handles. And yes, I know, because you're only working in those top stitches and you're leaving that bar from the back of your chain stitch, it will curl a little. It will look like it's curling. It will loosen up in time. The two things that I do that I don't mind that this curls. I mean, if you don't want it to curl, you can work in both loops. If you don't want to do the decorative stitch on top, you can work through both loops. But I'm just working through the one because I don't mind if it curls, because between the decorative stitch on top and this right here, between the decorative stitch on top and the fact that I line the handles, you don't notice that that handle kind of curled in on itself. It totally takes that away. My preference, you can do these handles the same way, but just work through both loops of that second chain or both loops of the first chain, either way, so that it doesn't curl quite as much. Or you can do it this way. Somebody suggested weaving a ribbon up the center of it, which you absolutely could do, because when you get those, oh, there, look, maybe if I put it first, oh, there you go, see? There's those X's. How you get those neat little X's in the center. So those neat little X's are going to provide us the spaces to do the decorative stitching, and which is super, super simple. It's literally just slip stitch. Or like somebody else had suggested, weaving a ribbon in and out of the top of it to make it a little bit different. The skulls were my favorite, and I typically would have chosen a different color to work with. Good morning, Janie. I would have typically chosen a different color to work with. However, this was just kind of like what I decided to do this week, because I actually sold the only one that I had left. So I decided that I would make a couple of more. I do have enough skulls for another bag. And that other bag, I decided that instead of just, see, I'm not all the way down that center part, because we did up and around the sides. So we did up and around the sides, back handle, around the sides, front handle. Now I'm just working through the center part of each handle. So I'm going around this way. I hung it off my head yesterday. I don't have enough hands. So now we're going down the centers to finish off the second row single crochet on the other side of the chain, and give our edge a little bit more on the front of the bag. And yes, that's my dog hopping in the background. Thank you very much for everybody that's joining me. Thank you for all the follows. So I'm just going to go back down into that. Keep going. I went around it, and I'm going to keep going down through both loops now into my granny squares. Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for all the follows. Those of you that want to go back and watch the previous tutorials or the previous crochet circle chit chat, pick up the tips and tricks that I'm just kind of babbling about while I do this. When I'm done with my lives and TikTok has processed them, I go over to YouTube and I upload them as sort of like a podcast, since I talk through the majority of it. It's Nifty Knots, NIFTYKNOTZ, one word, Talk, TOK. That is the podcast. The name of my channel is just Nifty Knots. There is a link in my link tree. If you go to my bio, you can click the link tree and you can see my YouTube page there. Now again, I'm down to the last two stitches, because remember we're counting that joining stitch. So I'm down to the last two stitches before my center marked stitch. And because we have to work this like a chevron to get our nice crisp corner there, I have to decrease these stitches. So I just do a regular decrease, and then that brings me back to the center again. And I'm only going to do one more round, because one more round will give me 2 rounds of the single crochet on the opposite side of the chain that we did for our handles. Now I know when you do it that way, when you go up and around the handles, so when you go up and around the handles this way, the side, second handle, the side, and up and around the first handle again. So when you do that, because you're chaining, you're going to end up with one more row, because the first row that you do going up that is going to be a chain. So then you're going to do two more rows to get your 2 rows of single crochet. So the front of the bag, this right here, this border for the front of the bag is going to be 1 less single crochet row than the side of the bag. But again, when you look at the bag, it looks right. So you see I only have those 2 rows there, but yet the border on the side is just a little bit thicker, and you don't notice the difference with just that that 1 row of stitches missing. You just don't know that, you just don't realize that, you just don't even see the difference there. You know, everybody's looking at the rest of the bag. So now I'm going to go back up, because I'm down where I started from, and working through, starting back up the second side, because I did my middle stitch. And since I've done my middle stitch, and again, because we want this to draw closed like a chevron, to get that nice crisp V in the fronts and the backs, you're going to have to decrease the next 2 stitches from the center, and then continue working your way up. So this will then be the last time around. I will go for this handle here, and I have the other one done, and then I will show you how I do the slip stitches to make them look like that, like rickrack. That this edge on the handle here. Take a minute. Good morning, everybody that's joining me. Thank you for joining me. This is just kind of like me sitting in the middle of my living room, like I would sit in a crochet circle, chattering away, showing people what I'm doing, explaining some of the quirky things that I do to manipulate and maneuver my yarn to get them to look different. For those of you that are joining us, I'm working on the granny square totes you see in the back. Earlier in the week, I did a couple of tutorials, or a couple of, just, round table chit chat, I guess, maybe, lives here on TikTok that showed you how to, excuse me, that showed you how to make your motifs pop on your granny squares. These are not stitched on, these are actually incorporated in part of the granny square bag, as is what did I do with my bunny? Looking for my bunny with the eye. There it is. As is this. It starts out like this. One of the making motifs pop on granny squares is the tutorial for the rabbit. Also the frog that I did. But it's a way of going around your granny squares and going around your motifs so that you don't have to stitch them on top of your granny squares. And I also, in those videos, go through how to make your granny squares, because most patterns come as a straight square. So most patterns come as a square. I don't know how I'll say it. I like my grannies tilted so that I can put them into my bags. So I can make them into my bags. So also in some of those tutorials, crochet round tables, whatever you want to call them, I have my methods for how you can adapt that center motif into a tilted granny square so that you could use it for something different and not just a square, but then into a diamond like I use for the bags. Again, those can be found on my YouTube channel. You can get to my YouTube channel from my link tree in my bio. The name of the channel is also Nifty Knots. These lives I upload when I'm done with them to a playlist. It's Nifty Knots Talk, T-O-K. Nifty Knots is one word with a Z. Because I had a lot of people ask me or tell me that they wanted to be able to go back and watch what I did again. So I started, after my lives and after TikTok processes the video, I upload them to YouTube so that you can indeed go back and watch some of the things I did. That way you can like click through and slow down and mute me if you need to mute me. Some comments in this live were filtered to protect the community. Wonder if that was somebody else asking me to knit them Speedos. That was yesterday. I don't know. I'm just sitting here playing with my string, talking to everybody. That makes me happy. You guys don't realize that this routine in the morning has really helped me significantly. You get to my age and things start to change. Really? Yes, really. Yes. Will you knit me a pair of Speedos? When you get to my age and things start to change, it's, between everything just kind of flying out of your brain faster than it flies out of your mouth, and just the craziness that ensues in your head, I guess, until it all calms down. This has really helped to ground me in the mornings, because mornings were hardest for me. So I'm really thankful and grateful for all of you that joined me. I hope most of you can learn something. I have my biggest fan there. I love you, Janie. Oh, you make my mornings when I see you. And I do apologize. I don't... crocheting, knitting is such good therapy. Yeah, it is good therapy. It is. And I love to do it. And I'm like obsessive now about it. I'm not really obsessive about it. I have bins in my house that have to go out to my garage that... Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. I mean it. I meant every word of it. Of stock that I have on my shop. And then I will take to vendor events and craft shows in the summer. I live pretty much in the middle of nowhere. It's like camp town. So in the wintertime, you don't even see your neighbors. Like, we just kind of assume everybody's still alive until like everything thaws, and then we come out and say hi to everybody. And then in the summer it becomes camp town, which is where I grew up to vacation, and my parents still live in the city, and I moved up here because I loved it up here. Okay, so I'm back down to the corner here, and I'm back down to my last 2 stitches before my center stitch. So I'm going to decrease over those 2 stitches. And then, since that was my second row, I'm going to just join to my first stitch. And I like, when I knot my stuff, sometimes I do an invisible knot, but it doesn't really matter with this bag if you do an invisible join or not. So to knot my stuff, I found at one point, I don't know how I discovered it, that to knot the end of my projects, if it didn't matter if there was a knot there that I was just going to weave in the tail, you can actually just chain two. That's all I did was chain two. Cut your thread with enough to weave in, pull it out, and then you take that chain two. You can take that chain two and you can just grab it with your tops of your fingers and pull it down. And once you've pulled it down, you can see that that chain two that you've pulled down creates your knot. So that's an easy way if you don't care if you have a knot on the top of your project. And I don't, because I'm going to just weave that in, and then I'm going to line it, and nobody's ever going to see it there. Some places, some things that I do, like my granny squares. This is where I knotted the end of my granny square. But what I did was I did like an invisible, and what I think one of the last videos that I did, actually in my TikTok reel, I showed you how to pull that loop around so that you can't tell that this was my last stitch. But if you look at the back, I took the back of my thread after I made that invisible join there, and I knotted it on the back where you're not going to see it, and then I wove in my ends. So when you look at the side of that granny square, you can't tell that that's where the knot is. When you look in the back, you can clearly see that's where I knotted it. And it doesn't really matter with this piece because I'm going to make a bag out of him that's going to be lined, so you're not going to see it. But that's how I like to do that. Let me take a sip here or two. How's everybody doing this morning? And then I'm going to show you how I do that decorative stitch through the top of my bags. So you can see here, I'll pull both of them off. So this one I did in gray, and it is just simply a slip stitch. But I'll show you how I go back and forth and make it look like that. This one is the same way, and you can see how just by hanging my bags, I don't have to block them. The squares will then become just perfectly square and fall into place when I hang them before I line them. But this is the same way. It's the same thing. It is just simply, and I think I did, no, that's 2 rows. 2 rows of single crochet there, 2 rows of single crochet there. That's what the back looks like. So if you're worried about like doing that decorative stitch and you're not going to line it, the back still looks pretty. And then the front has that like zigzag to it. Same with this one. Oh, I can't even show you this one because I lined it. I'm sorry. I don't have another one sitting there unlined. So I'll show you when I start doing this one here. I'll show you when I start doing this one there. Thank you very much, Janie. How you just see that it's going to look just as pretty on the back as it does on the front. But I know you can hear me slurping because I have my mic on. I'm so really sorry. I didn't even think of that. For those of you that are just joining us, I am working on my granny square tote bags. In the past, we worked on some basic amigurumi. And I showed you how to take that basic doll and use blanket yarn and turn it into things like bunnies and cows. Those are also on my YouTube channel. You can get to my YouTube channel from the link in my link tree. And it's Nifty Knots is the name of the channel. Nifty Knots Talk is the name of I call it a podcast, because all I do is sit here and chat. And show you what I'm doing as well. But so all of these lives will then when I'm done with them and TikTok's done processing them, I go back and I upload them to YouTube, so you can go back and click through them and see the parts that you wanted to see. I try to get as close to as I can to the screen so that you can see the stitches that I'm doing. I know I picked the black yarn this week because I wasn't thinking. All I knew was I sold the last granny bag that I had with the skulls, and I needed to make new ones. And you're not going to be able to see this, but you can see see how when you work through just those top stitches, you get like that X, like that ladder. That ladder is, see those X's? You can see the X's. That's what we're going to work through to do the decorative stitch. I'm going to take one more sip so I don't start like coughing here because I talk too much, because I don't normally talk to anybody. This has been great for me. I really appreciate it. I made tea yesterday. It just wasn't the same. Sometimes I'm in a tea mood, sometimes I'm in a coffee mood. Okay, so I'm using my gray. Be sure I have the right gray here because I have a couple different grays. This is the gray that I used. And to do this stitching, I'm going to tie my slip knot, and I'm going to go to the handle. I'll move you down a little bit so you can see best you can. Maybe this might help. Oh, sorry. It's my daughter's drawing board. I don't know if I have room for it here, but I'm going to make a... maybe. Okay, so since this is the same color as the square that I have here, I'm going to start this all the way down here. And then when I weave in the ends, the gray will kind of match in with the gray in the back. But to do this, the first part of being able to make this work is your working stitch is going to be on top. Your working yarn is going to be on the bottom. Easier than you think, especially since it's such a thin piece of fabric. There goes those words then again. Okay, so I'm just going to insert this into the center of where my granny square was. Can you guys see that? And then I'm going to take my loop from the bottom and I'm going to pull it up. I'm only going to take my working yarn. I'm going to insert my stitch, and I know Janie, you had followed me. It's similar to what I did for the shark's teeth. So I'm going to put my hook down through where I want my next stitch to be. I'm going to grab my working yarn from the back. I'm going to pull it up through the piece and onto the top. You can see it created that loop there. It's just kind of going to be straight, and you can give it a tug if you want to tighten it. It's just kind of going to be straight until we get to the point where you started working up and down the chains. Because when you started working up and down the chains and you can see the little X's there, you can see you're going to work back and forth. So you're almost going to go sideways. And I will demonstrate that. So again, you're going to take your hook with your loop. You're going to go down where you want it to be. So you can see that's kind of where I want it to be. You're going to take your working yarn from the back and you're just going to pull it up, and you can tighten it a little bit if you want to tighten it down a little bit. Can everybody see that? Does that? Oh, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to do one more straight, and then I'm going to start going back and forth. So again, you take your hook with your loop, put it down to the front, your working yarn's on the back, and just like you would do a slip stitch, you're going to grab that working yarn and you're just going to bring it through to the front, and you're going to give it a tug. So when you look at it from the back, you're just going to get a straight line of stitches. And on the front, you're going to get that line of chain stitches. Now, when I do, let's see how close I can get here. Still see what I'm doing. So now, when I'm starting to go up, I don't need these anymore. I have projects that I pull out for vendor events that I still have bobby pins in. So I can hold my yarn and my hook basically the same way I would hold my yarn and my hook any other way. So I'm going to then look for that little X that's in there. I know it's really, really hard to see, but it's where the chains came together. Is it focusing? It's where your chain was. So you're working in the middle of these 2 rows of single crochet and these 2 rows of single crochet. And basically what you're going to do is you're going to go on one side of that, and you might not be able to see it here right now, but I can guarantee you when you start to do it, you'll look at it and go, oh, that's right. So I'm going to go on that side of it, and then I'm going to take my hook and I'm going to go on the other side. So if you can, I can see, I don't know if you can see, it won't. So I did my first loop on this side, it won't focus. Loop on this side. And then I'm just going to take my hook and put it beside it, right beside it, which is the other side of that chain, and it's going to start to take it back and forth. So now I'm going to go up to the next stitch and go to one side of it and pull it up. And again, I'm just working over the midsection of the chain that we didn't single crochet into when we did the single crochet rows on either side. So there is a chain stitch down here, and there is like a little running stitch down there, and that's what I'm working over. I'm working over one side of it, and then I'm going right beside it, and I'm pulling up the second one. And you see they start to zigzag. So I'm going to go up to the next one. I'll do a few and then you'll really see it. I'll go up to the next stitch, just in that chain, on the one side of that chain that we left there. And then I'm going to go back down. You can see where it's coming out, and you can see where I have a space directly beside it. So you're just kind of going to work back and forth over that, and it's going to give you that back and forth look. So I'm going to go up to the next one, and I'm going to pull it through as a slip stitch, and I'm going to go right beside it, and I'm going to pull it through as a slip stitch, and then I'm going to go up one and pull it through as a slip stitch, and then I'm going to go right beside it on the other side of the chain and pull it through. And you can see how it then starts to look like it's zigzagging back and forth. I can't read comments, I'm sorry. So then it starts to look like it's zigzagging back and forth. And that's why when you're doing your single crochets on the side of your straps, after you've chained, you only crochet in the top loop. You only crochet in the top loop, and you leave that that bottom loop. Just throw everything around, and you leave that bottom loop open. So when you're working your single crochet rows around your handles, you're going to work through. Trying to get to focus. It's trying to focus on different parts. So this is your chain, and you've got a top loop here If you work from the other side, you have a top loop here, right? Top loop, top loop. What you're going to skip when you're working through those when you work one side, you work through the top loop. When you work the other side, you work through the other top loop. What you're going to skip is this running stitch. So this is the back of your chain. So there's your top loops on either side, and then you have your running loop in the center. So you're going to skip that. Running stitch in the back so that it gives you something to go back and forth over to do the zigzag stitch. Let's see. So I'm going to finish this handle. Hopefully, today's Friday. Today's Friday. And I'm usually on Monday through Friday around 9:45 in the morning. And I usually stay on for about an hour. And hang out. And I'm just going to keep going up. Whoops. And I'm just going to keep going up. I'm going to go up a stitch. I'm going to go up a stitch and over a stitch, up a stitch and over a stitch. And if they're not perfect, they're not perfect. They don't have to be. So up a stitch and over a stitch. Oh, that did not go over at all. You can kind of pull it apart to see. Up a stitch and over a stitch. If you pull it apart, you'll see where you're going. Up a stitch, over a stitch. They're not perfect, but if you just keep going in that manner, I don't know why I did those like that. Probably because I'm trying to talk. You'll see that you'll get that rick-rack. Boy, I have to learn how to block people while I'm doing a live. Whoops, sorry about that. Maybe you should take that as a hint. You know who I'm talking about. So I'm going to pull out just these couple because it looks like it just went straight up and down with that one instead of back and forth. But I'll leave this sit here so you guys can watch me do this one and forth. This side. Leave it directly beside it. This side. And directly beside it. Oh, those stitches look funky. I don't know why they look so funky. Let's see if I can fix that. Not all that glitters is gold. Stitch and beside the stitch. Up a stitch on the one side and beside the stitch on the next side. Up and over. And over. It must just be the way the stitches are that way. Wait, did we manage to get rid of the creeper that just is being obnoxious? I'm just gonna keep doing this up and down the entire. My chain must have been a little bit uneven there. It's a cool design element for the strap. Yeah, it does one of two things. It helps to keep the strap a little bit flatter because you see sometimes they curl. So it helps to keep the strap a little bit flatter. And it looked neat when I did it. So I liked it. So that was just like part of my design when I did them. Looks like I'm getting to a part where I was a little bit more even with my stitches. Because again, when you're looking for the next stitch to go into, if you just pull it apart a little bit at the center, you can see it a little bit more. And I know it looks a little bit funky there, but I mean, if you look at the rest of them, they're not perfect. They're not meant to be perfect. They are handmade, and they're just meant to be handmade and unique. I don't know. My opinion. So I have some places where they're straight. I have some places where they're zigzagged a little bit more than others. I shouldn't say straight, but zigzagged a little bit more than others. But I just kind of basically just keep going back and forth over where that chain was. Again, my dog. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you everybody for liking the live. I really appreciate all the comments. I appreciate all the interaction. Well, I appreciate most of the comments. Some of the comments are... That's going to be my goal for today. To try to figure out how to block some people. Because some of it's just overly inappropriate. I just want to sit here and share what I'm doing, and some people are just, I don't know, do you guys read the comments? You guys aren't reading some of the comments. If you're not reading some of the comments, some of them tend to be not appropriate. And I am not always the most appropriate person. But when you guys on there saying things like they're saying to me, you know what, go away. I'm too old for that shit. I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to keep going back and forth. And again, these tutorials, I don't really care if it's perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know how long I've been on. A little over an hour. I think that's going to be my limit for today. My stomach's growling. My throat's getting dry. But yeah, so far today we were working on the granny bags, and that's how you would finish up that that decorative stitch on the edge of the bag there. And then once you've done that, you just go over the other strap and it's pretty much done. It is done, actually, unless you want to line it. To line my bags, I usually just lay them out flat on a piece of newspaper that's taped together. So I would lay them out flat, and I would just trace around the bag part, and I would then cut my strapping out. I would cut and fold it like you would fold double folded bias tape, and then I take it on my machine and I run it through. Looks terrible. I'm just going to take that whole thing out, I think. But you get the gist of it. That's what I get for trying to talk and do it at the same time. But yeah, I would stitch my strapping on, and I would leave a little bit, leave it a little bit longer down here, and then I would stitch my strapping, top stitch on my machine. And if you pay attention to where your fabric is laying against your stitches, you can't even tell that you top stitched it on the machine. Like, you can look at that. I mean, you can't tell really. I use transparent thread, by the way, to top stitch my linings on. So you can see where I've top stitched where I have sort of my bias tape. And then you can see right beside it, you can kind of see the stitch line where I use my transparent thread. And when you turn it, it just kind of like disappears into the stitching and you can't tell from the outside. But that's basically how I line my bags. I know today wasn't very, I don't know, I felt like today wasn't that great. But it's Friday. Any of these tutorials or anything that you want to see that I've done in the past, that's me. I keep knocking my, like the bunnies. I'm working on the frog. I'm going to try to get the frog pattern because the frog pattern will be totally mine, so I'll try to get the frog pattern on my website maybe this weekend if I get a chance to work on doing the frog. Earlier this week we did making your motifs pop on your granny squares. As you can see, they are not stitched on. They are actually part of the granny squares. I learned a lot. Oh, thank you so much, Janie. I upload my lives to YouTube. You can find a link to my channel and go to the Nifty Knots Talk section, playlist, whatever, and all of these lives are uploaded and you can see them. The rest are basically just shorts that I upload to TikTok. And then in the past, one of the patterns on my website is for the basic amigurumi dolls. I do have tutorials and lives up for those as well, and again, they are just the basic doll. This one's made out of worsted weight, this one's made out of blanket yarn, and then it's a free pattern on my website. And then there are accessory pieces to make the bunny, the giraffe, and the cow. I did go through how to make my shark puppet in one of my tutorials, including how to do the three-dimensional. So we can work on the shark puppet. Oh, good. You'll have to let me know how they work out. If I was helpful enough, if you managed to like see well enough to get it. But one of the lives that I had done that's uploaded is the shark puppet. I think there's 2 parts to it, maybe 3. One, I did the puppet. 2, I showed you how I did the 3-dimensional teeth. And then I showed you how, in one of the other ones, working short rows to shape things in amigurumi. So, yeah, those are all on my YouTube channel. If you guys are interested, thank you so much for joining me today, everyone, except for the creeper that I'm glad for everybody that swiped and didn't have to read his comments. I will be back on Monday. I have a doctor's appointment on Wednesday, so next Wednesday I will not be here, but I will be here Monday and Tuesday. And I will pick a different project that has something to do other than black yarn so that you can see a little bit better. Maybe I'll work on getting my bunnies done so that I can show you better with the brighter colors, how I do things. And who knows, maybe I'll finish my bunnies and just start something totally random for next week. I don't know. But I appreciate everybody that joined. I appreciated everybody that commented, that liked. Go head over to my YouTube channel if you want to rewatch them. Today's wasn't, you know, we all have those days. My other ones, though, do go over how to make, like, the entire puppet or the entire body of the amigurumi doll some explanation of how simple they can be if you just know some simple techniques. And again, if you can hold your yarn and you can hold your hook, you can do pretty much anything that I'm doing here. I will see you guys on Monday, and you have a good weekend as well. Thank you very much.